In 1971, at the age of 48, documentary photographer Diane Arbus committed suicide in her bathtub. You may well know her from her iconic square medium format black and white work, a medium she only adopted in the last 9 years of her life. It's staggering to think of such an incredible output in such a short time, and today I dive into the book that was put out posthumously after her death. Hello, I'm Edward Thompson. Welcome to today's episode of Pictures on My Mind. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about a photographer that I simply adore, and that's Diane Arbus. If you're a documentary photographer and you don't know about Diane Arbus, so we're going to change all that. And if you do know about Diane Arbus, look man, I'm just going to say about some of her books here, because yeah, it's one you would have seen knocking around. It's one you can pick up for not much money. They did a reprint of it. But yeah, it's tinged with sadness because this edition was released posthumously after she committed suicide in the early 70s. And obviously that does colour the work somewhat. And what's really fun is I went to a library and I found kind of the original book as a hardback. It's the 4th edition, whereas the one I owned is like a 90s reprint. And just looking through it, apart from this little essay at the front of the Aperture monograph version, which I'll read, it's quite fun to look at them together. So a lot of the photographs, the reproduction is pretty good. If I just put these side by side here, obviously this is a very well loved book from a library, and this one I've kind of looked after. So there we go. There's some of them are sort of pretty good in the original, and some are pretty good in the reprint. Let me find one in particular. There's a lot of nudity in these books, which I totally forgot about. Obviously, she did a whole series of nudist colonies. So yes, there are breasts and vaginas and penises that I might have to do something about in post-production because of YouTube. YouTube. The reproduction's pretty amazing in the reprint. And I haven't looked into just how much these original editions were. But yeah, this is a 4th edition. Yeah, 4th printing, so 1972, and I think it was first published, was it 1971? You know, pound for pound, it's pretty cool, these reprints, because you know what? How's that? I just knocked the tripod there, how's that? How's that grab you? Look at that. So, you know, you're not missing out anything by not having the original one, because they're pretty much exactly the same. So it's funny how yellow this old paper is now, compared to this pristine white paper. But yeah, it's the same thing. So anyway, so there you go. So if you do like the look of this, you don't have to buy the crazy expensive one. You can just get this reprint. But anyway, I thought I'd have a little flick through. So here we go, Diane Arbus, the photo. You've probably seen this cover photograph before. It's quite an iconic image. It's the twins. And it might remind you somewhat of the twins in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And that's probably quite plausible, because this was around before. It was a very sort of well-known image, and it might have kind of pervaded and affected it. And you think about the girls in The Shining with their little headbands and what they're wearing, and it's kind of similar, right? And I said in a previous video how, you know, Philip Jones Griffiths' work in Vietnam clearly inspired Francis Ford Coppola's work in Apocalypse Now, so it's not unheard of. But there you go. And there's something always spectacular about the twins photo that I've always loved, is the expressions are slightly different. And not to be too weird, but I was photographing, I think, a parade in Munich in like 2003 or 2004, and I saw 2 girls side by side who were twins, and I did a very, very similar shot. And I can't believe I've said that now, because now I've got to try and hunt through some hard drives to find that photo. But anyway, now what's really nice about this book compared to the original is it has this nice little essay. So for those of you not up to speed with Diane Arbus, I'll just give you a brief overview. Diane Arbus, born Diane Nemerov in New York City in 1923, married Alan Arbus at the age of 18. She started taking pictures in the early 1940s and studied photography with Berenice Abbott in the late 1940s and with Alexei Brodovich in the mid-1950s. It was Liza Model's photographic workshops, however, that inspired her, and around 1956 to begin seriously pursuing the work for which she has become known. And yeah, she was freelancing for magazines, so it says here Harper's Bazaar and others. She got a Guggenheim Fellowship in 1963 and 1966, so working on American rights, manners and customs, travelling around America, so that was amazing. A selected group of these photographs attracted a great deal of critical and popular attention when they were featured. The Museum of Modern Art's 1967 exhibition, New Documents. In the 1960s, Arbus taught photography at Parsons School of Design, Rhode Island, and Cooper Union continued to make photographs, notably among her late works is a series of photographs she took at residencies for the mentally retarded. That's what it says here. What it doesn't say, obviously, because this is the kind of, you know, the family sanctioned monograph is a bit about how she struggled. And like, you know, in later books, there's interviews and letters she sent to friends where, you know, she ended up really struggling for money, for one, in the late 60s and early 70s. And then also teaching, which, judging by kind of what she said about the process, she did not enjoy. She wasn't inspired by the students' work. When she taught, she kind of gave it her all and then would come away completely drained, or then didn't know how to connect. She made then like a portfolio of prints to try and sell as like a little box set of 10 prints, which for Richard Avedon, I think she tucked an extra one in because he liked the one of the woman in the wheelchair of the Halloween mask. And Richard Avedon was a sweetheart. He not only bought one for him, but he bought one for a friend. And I think before she committed suicide, I think she only sold 5 of them. So again, you think about that. Like Diane Arbus, like she was pretty established then. She was struggling for money. She's trying to sell literally a portfolio of prints. I don't even want to know how much she was selling them for. I'll look it up, but I'm sure it's just horrific that, you know, she couldn't get anyone behind that. And whether that pressure and everything that was going on led to eventual suicide, who knows? But again, that's just conjecture. But yeah, obviously the struggle is real. It is hard. It is, you know, it's always tough for every photographer to make a living. And I think she had a bit of a dark passenger as well. There's a little booklet where there's an interview, I think with a friend, where she sent a letter to a friend saying she'd stumbled across some, I think, a Walker Evans box set of prints for sale, and they were printed so well, it kind of really intimidated her. And I think the quote was something like, "What are they going to make of the brown spots on my prints?" It's like, you know what, man, like, you're an amazing photographer, like, maybe have someone else print the work, you know? But again, it was that thing, and I guess probably for money's sake, is that you're going to make more money if you print them yourself as well. So there we go. But anyway, Diane Arbus. There's some amazing quotes at the start, little snippets of her. She wasn't known to write much down. In a previous video, I talked about Cartier-Bresson and how much kind of he left. Diane Arbus wasn't so vocal as little snippets. Always loved this portrait of her teaching at Rhode Island School of Design in 1970, and again, that's literally like a year before she died. And it's funny because, you know, photo students don't photograph much in class anymore. I mean, I've taught in universities off and on for like 10 years now, and like, I don't know if they'd even take photos of like visiting lecturers anymore. I don't think they would. It's pretty wild, isn't it? Because like, the weird thing for me is that when I found this book in a library of my art college, I had no idea who Diane Arbus was. I had no clue whatsoever. So all that history, I mean, obviously, did I even know she committed suicide? But that probably not. I probably just picked up this book and I just saw the photographs and, you know, bam. Again, in a later video, I'll cover like some of the really things I learned from her, but just look at this lovely portrait here. So it's a family, they're together. Obviously, it's a bit of a pose portrait. A lot of her photographs are obviously pose portraits. And you know what? In documentary, I've got no problem with that, okay? I've got no problem with that. And it's a way I've always worked, because if you can tell, I'm kind of chatty. So again, it's a similar thing, you're engaging with people. And unlike lots of the street photographers at the time, people like Marowitz and Winogrand and those guys, you know, you can really see Diane in these photos. You can see that there's a relationship. And like everything about it. So, you know, it says a young man in curlers on West 20th Street, 1966. I mean, obviously that would have been quite controversial at the time. Now, not so much. But then this nice scene here of like the ballroom dance champions. Next thing you know, a girl with a cigar, which I guess was a little bit weird at the time. But, you know, her expression, the way she looks. Bang with the nudists. I'll have to do something about this little chap, won't I? Anyway. Loser at a diaper derby, a little baby crying. This shot I've always loved. And again, it's not as characteristic for her work. A lot of her work was portraiture. There wasn't so many what I call reportage moments. And although this is a bit of a portrait, the kid bending over, the guy with the hand on the head, is starting to tell a little story. It's a little story about him, about how he feels. And it's like, you know, is this the American dream? Is this it? I don't know. Maybe that's what's going on, but it's kind of fun. This little guy here, it says Mexican dwarf in his hotel room. Obviously, that's probably not the preferred way of saying it now, but back in the day, that's what she said. And look, man, he looks pretty damn happy to have Diane photographing him in his room. She's using flash here. This trippy photo. Now, yeah, obviously it's Disneyland. It looks really surreal. It's always looked really surreal for me. And it's that thing of like, yeah, it's a bit later on, you'll see some of her photos where it's like backdrops of paintings, and she's put those as a backdrop. It's some kind of weird, you know, the power of photography to kind of like collapse everything into 2 dimensions and make things surreal. Puerto Rican woman with a beauty mark, more nudists. This one is great. So there's obviously some wacky like pro-Vietnam protest that she's gone to. Later on, there's another guy and it says, "I'm proud." And it's like, you know, 4 other Proud Boys there. But, you know, look at this chap. I mean, he's there. He's like deadpan, stone cold, no reaction. He's got a little badge and it says Bomb Hanoi. And it says, God bless America, support our boys, Vietnam. He's got his little American flag, little bow tie here. He's holding a flag. It's kind of terrifying. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of terrifying. And it's this weird, it's almost like the banality of evil. Like, this is like a pro-war child, like a kid. I don't know how old he is. He looks like a very young man. But anyway, 1967. We'll get to the other one later on. This one's nice for Diane. So it just says girl in a coat lying on her bed, 1968. And like, we don't know her background, we don't know what's going on, but you know, Diane's in the room with her, and again, that's important. A lot of her photographs, she might have been like Washington Park, she might have been parks around New York, but she's also like, you know, ending up in people's houses, and I have done that a lot myself, and it's pretty cool. Really great, she's just really great at photographing like 2 people or 1 person. That's kind of like some of her best shots, and this is just a lovely shot that's not as well known. It's a couple on a bench in New York. And again, sort of great expression. Again, fair amount of flash on that one. And that's something that she used a lot, whereas no flash on this one. And again, if she'd used flash on that one, maybe she should have lost some of that, kind of lost some of the edge to it. Would have, you know, just killed the mood by blitzing it with flash, so she didn't. Just, yeah, a massive Christmas tree wedged into the corner of a living room in the 60s. And again, like, now it looks kind of weird. Back then, people might have been like, yeah, that's how it looks. But through the magic of photography and time, look at that TV set. Look at the type of sofa. They've kept the plastic around the lampshade on the lamp. The crazy clock. And, like, how few other things there are in that room. It's pretty sparse, isn't it? Yeah, time travel. Very famous image of hers, a Jewish giant at home with his parents. And again, you know, it's a bit of a spectacle. She said herself she loved photographing the freaks, but at the same time, this is a lady at the masked ball. Doesn't she look like a freak to you? So again, it's this idea, yeah, she'd photograph people who were kind of clearly, kind of not mainstream or a bit odd, but through her lens, she made the everyday seem odd as well. And that's something I've always loved, the idea of kind of subverting the uncanny, you know, like the everyday, like making the everyday something else, something weird. And just coming back to this shot that was on the cover, her expression and her expression. The twin is smiling, this twin is not smiling. They're similar, but they're different. And you know what? The old game some of the fine art photographers like to play is photography is like the mirror. Well, for me, you know, I've always felt immense duality in my life, and maybe Diane felt that duality too. And if this is her soul, like one half is smiling, one half is not, there seems to be, you know, a fracture there. Again, could be crazy talk. I'm a wacky dude, and that's how I'm invested in this stuff. Again, just a weird shot here. It says 4 people at a gallery opening, and it just looks like they're waxworks, doesn't it? I know she's got a lot of makeup on, but just, you know, the whole way it's set up, it literally looks like waxworks. So a man in drag dancing at a ball, just a nice moment. Oh, gonna have to like nuke some of these guys. But yeah, nudists, and later on she'd, you know, photograph people with learning disabilities and that kind of stuff. But here's the shot I was saying about earlier. So for me, the shot previously of the Disney castle and this shot of just the corner of a room that has a mural photo like pasted on it, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like through photographing something, you can make it really surreal. And like by just having the edge of this floor here and the plug socket, yeah, it messes with your head, you know. You think you're looking at a landscape photo and you realise you're looking at a wall. Yeah, you know, not cutting away. And there's that famous photo series by the conceptual photographer later on who had all the children kind of crying, and she made them cry because it was an allegory for her hatred of the American far right. But like, you know, I always felt bad about that. But you know, now I'm a dad, like kids cry all the time, like all the time. So I don't feel so bad that she's doing that. Again, couples, man. So great portraits of couples, and just their expressions are so blank and devoid. I mean, the army jacket on, he's like proto Travis Bickle. But yeah, nice body language too, and the hot dogs. It says transvestite at her birthday party. So yeah, she's just basically using photography to get around, and like there's so much in this book. There's so much good stuff. I mean, look at that. So again, is it hard to tell? She's got a bit of a catchlight in the eye here. I think there's a little touch of fill flash. Sometimes Diane's flash could be quite heavy, sometimes it's just like a kiss, and I feel like, yeah, that could be the catchlight from the light above, and it's a bit top lit, but it's very soft as well. I don't think that would be that direct. So yeah, a little bit of fill flash there. Obviously flash here, burlesque comedian in her dressing room. So yeah, she's just going out and basically doing anything. And this is the thing, I said in a previous video now, with documentary photographers, they're kind of cornering you and being like, right, well, who are you? Well, that dictates what you're allowed to photograph, because who are you? That dictates what you're allowed to photograph. Diane Arbus photographed whatever she frickin' well wanted to. You know, she wanted to photograph people on the fringe of society. She wanted to photograph people with disabilities. She wanted to photograph the rich. She wanted to photograph anyone. She just frickin' did it. That's awesome, okay? You'll enrich your life meeting and photographing people who are not like you, okay? And this is why there are no far-right photojournalists. Find one. They just don't exist, okay? Because when you've seen so much of the world and met so many different people, it's very hard for groups to other people. Because you've met them, you've known them, you've talked to them, you've spent time with them. It's really hard for them to do that. And an interesting statistic is, in countries or towns where there's less immigration, there's more xenophobia. Because they're not engaging with those people. So when someone else comes along and says, hey, these people over here, they're the enemy, well, you'd be like, well, no, you're not. They're not at all, because I've met them. So again, expand your horizon. Go to the edge of the land, you know, blow your mind, talk to strangers, meet people, you know. It's a wonderful way of enriching your life, you know. Not only is photography just an awesome way of creating art or stories, it's a great way of expanding yourself, of developing yourself as a person. So there we go. Ah, the triplets in the bedroom. Here we go. Look at that one. Yeah, so amazing. And again, like, very interesting expressions. Doesn't quite have that dynamism of the twins, but it has something there. Again, more Mars balls. So one thing to cover is that this book was made after she died, right? They basically like gone through a lot of her projects because she was working in series. And they just kind of cannibalized them all and put them in together. And I still think it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But, you know, obviously, she had a whole series of masked balls. She had a whole series on nudists, you know? A lot of street photography. Look at this chap, man at a parade. Obviously, Phil Flash here, the way he's holding his coat, the gaze to camera. You know, Diane engaged with people. Look at this one, a young man and his pregnant wife in Washington Square Park. We've got proto-Amy Winehouse here. Look at that gaze to camera, the body language, the way they're sat. It's amazing. Washington Square Park in 1965. Again, carnival trailer here. It says hermaphrodite and a dog in the carnival trailer. And again, like the expression, man, like, I don't know. She loved it. She loved it. She loved photography. And I mean, there's a big part of it where, you know, there's a quote at the start or somewhere I read where, you know, she felt nervous and excited. And it was difficult to do. And some days she didn't want to go. But when she's on the way, it's like, no turning back now. That's exactly how I feel after photographing for 23 years. I'm always nervous. I just go and do it anyway, because once I get going, I freaking love it. But there's always that little bit of fear, you know. And I think Diane Arbus said it was like going on a blind date. You know, it was exciting. And that comes through in her work. It was exciting. And these people, they felt that excitement. Oh, my word. Patriotic young man with a flag. I'm proud. Hello, proud boy. And like, check him out, look at his face. He's such a sort of an archetype, you know? Such an archetype. And maybe it's okay, you know, actually, no, you know what, patriotic young man with a flag, I'm proud. Or maybe that was cool, maybe it's the 4th of July. I guess because I sort of saw that image before in the book, like Bomb Hanoi and it's another young man, you then kind of get sort of derailed a bit into thinking it's like that. So maybe this is a good thing. Good for you, man. Good for you, proud patriot American, you young man, you. So this was the extra photo that Diane Arbus tucked into her portfolio of 10 prints just for Richard Avedon, because he really liked it. Damn. Teenage couple on Hudson Street. Again, couples, lots of couples. A girl sitting on her bed. The King and Queen senior citizens dance. You know, it just jump around a lot. Lots of headshots, lots of portraits, lots of events. I mean, she was doing loads of work, and it wasn't that long a period of time. If I remember correctly, when she started shooting the twin lens, so when she started shooting square format. Always loved this body language here. I mean, your man spreading in action here. Look at that, boom. And it's weird, it's like he's got his leg on her and it's kind of dominating or ownership of her, but then she's got her hand round his neck, and she's the one looking to camera, whereas traditionally in, say, the history of painting, it would be the woman who'd be looking away and the man who'd be looking to camera. So it's kind of fun things to unpack here. Ah! Child with a toy grenade, yeah! Now, a lot of people aren't such fans of this shot. I freaking love it, and the reason I love it is, again, it has that nice street photography trick element of mirroring. Forget the kid's expression, forget the kid's grenade, forget the allegory of, like, you know, this early 60s and the youth beginning to revolt. Mirroring his little bony leggies and the trees in the background. Simple as that. This was the last of a photo on a contact sheet when she was shooting that roll of film, so 12 shots on the roll. I think it was the very last one. And all the other ones, they're okay, not so good. But in this one's amazing because he pulled the expression, and I think it was something like he was saying, come on, lady, finish already. And as he did that, bang, that's how she got the shot. So again, A lot of those street photographers, you weren't so aware of their presence in the photos, whereas in Diane's work you are aware of her presence. And you know what? I love that. I freaking love that. I love Diane. I love Diane. Again, couples on the beach. I mean, you know what, man? I'm going to let you have some surprises, right? If you don't have this book, I'm going to stop now. Yeah, I'm going to miss some gold in here, the woman and the monkey, whatever, and the sword swallower. You know what? Let's just finish on this one, actually. A House on the Hill. So again, it's that movie lot thing. It's a photograph on a set, it's a facade, it's a fake, you know, but in Diane's just stepping to one side, she's like turning around the edge of it. She's saying to you, hey, look at this. You know, it looks normal, but there's something odd, there's something off, there's something not right, there's something not real. That's what I've always loved about documentary photography. Yeah, the storytelling's cool, but the ability to use your camera and subvert reality and subvert people's perceptions, man, that's a trip. And yeah, I think that's something she would have been into too. And we'll never know, because she died, she killed herself. And that is so tragic, because, you know, what would she have done, you know, if she continued? So if you don't have it, pick up a copy of this. There's loads of, like, for sale, knocking around secondhand. It was such an amazing revelation for me seeing her work as a young student photographer. But yeah, really, really check her out. What I'm going to do after this video is I'm going to film for next week, kind of 5 or 6 things I really learned from Diane Arbus, and I'll share those in another video. But for now, yeah, if you like that, go pick up a copy, man. You'll love it. It's amazing. Thank you.